Hi, you're listening to Everyday Superpower, and what you're going to be listening into today is an explanation on manspreading and why do men feel the need to take up so much space. If you like the topic at hand, if you want to learn more about ourselves, how to read minds and how to communicate efficiently and understand what others are saying without a word even being said, click the subscribe button. Thanks. Okay, so this term, manspreading, has sort of taken wings in the past few years. It's used to describe a male, primarily on public transport is how it's referred to. I think that's the medium which annoys the most people. So a man on public transport or something alike, as to where their legs are spread, taking up a lot more room than they should do, and exposing the genital area. So if I can paint a picture, you're sitting on the tube or you're getting onto the tube to find a seat. There's an evident seat you can sit on, but it seems to be taken up by the person sitting next to it, who has spread their legs to an extent where it would be very uncomfortable and awkward to try to get in on that seat. So it's deemed very inappropriate and not necessarily tasteful, okay? So what I'm going to get into is, why does this happen and why would an individual choose to be so rude? Okay, so the manspread is a territorial behaviour, alright? It's more than likely going to be a unconscious behaviour, so the individual at hand who is performing it might not really know what they're doing. They're definitely in a particular state of mind which triggers the manspread, which I will explain. And as I've referenced on earlier videos, body language and nonverbal communication primarily tends to be on an unconscious level. So an individual doesn't really know what they're doing with their body because they're too busy in their own mind, in their conscious mind, probably, especially if you're on public transport, thinking about the day you've had or the day you've had ahead. All right, so that's something to consider. The individual at hand isn't doing it purely to annoy you. They're doing it because they feel some sort of way. All right, so territorial behaviours are seen all the way through our history, seen in numerous different means, some more acceptable than others, and seen in other animals. And I'm going to make a few points here which we can apply to the understanding of why a man may take up more space than necessary and present himself in this manner. Okay, so a few ideas which applies to the manspreading and why a man would do this is to have a look at the larger picture, okay? So, as I've spoken about, this is a territorial behaviour. This works on an unconscious basis within a man's mind. Now, it is a problem with men, primarily, taking up space, and that's why it's been given the name manspreading. Men run off of testosterone, whereas women estrogen, okay? And that makes a woman naturally more polite, more feminine, whereas a man running off of testosterone has a larger need to be number one, and to be number one means more resource, it means more value to bring back to the family, to look after the family, potential children, and to essentially place higher in the pecking order, alright? So we see that with the kings and queens who own so much land and possessions. That's a form of territorial behaviour. We look at your boss who has a larger desk than you, who can put his feet up on his desk and spread himself out, which you have no right to do around him because you are a subordinate. So that's a form of territorial behaviour. If you are in university or if you've been to school in the past, if you were working alongside an individual who had a high degree of self-esteem and a high sense of worth, what they may do is take more space up on the desk with their pens, their pencils, their laptops, so on and so forth. Okay, so these are all forms of territorial behaviours which link into why a man will spread his legs and take up more space than necessary. It's not conscious to annoy people, it is to showcase that they feel they're worth it. They feel that they deserve the additional resources, okay? Okay, so a secondary behaviour alongside the taking up of space, the acquisition of resource, is the genital display. So obviously when your legs are spread, you are exposing the crotch area now. It might seem shocking, but we all do it through varying means in our communications, just not as blatant as an individual who is manspreading. So just to paint a picture, if you were to be in conversation with a man whom is wearing jeans, he has both his hands in the pockets of the jeans, whereas his thumbs are over the top of the pockets, facing in a diagonal shape towards the crotch. That is a crotch display, okay? It is a genital display, and that's just alike what's happening here with the manspreading. We both do this, both men and women. It's just a sign of sexuality and being human beings. We're sexual beings, so it's nothing shocking, okay? So to get into the psychology as to why this individual is displaying his genitals as well as taking up space, is the genital display is a showcase of dominance, such as the taking up of resources. So it's a showcase of dominance, masculinity, and most importantly, it shows comfort. So on an unconscious level, whatever's going on in this man's mindset is that they're comfortable enough to expose themselves to the world. We unconsciously cover our genital areas, especially men. We cover our genital areas when we feel particularly fearful or frightened, or just for safety protocol, we do cover up our genital area for reasons I can explain in another video, but it should be relatively simple why. It's definitely not a place we want to be attacked, so that's something to consider. Alright, so if you were to break it up, what we've got is near about 65% of taking up resources and actually spreading, and I'd say 35% of it is the actual exposure of the genitals, alright? And it's not in sort of like a perverted way, it's just a human way as to where we, feel comfortable and confident enough to do that. Alright, so just to re-clarify, so the manspread is a territorial behaviour linking back to our primitive ancestors as to where more was necessary, okay? It's a lesser form of space, value, and material acquisition than a landlord who owns multiple properties and wants more properties, a rich person who wants more riches, the boss who feels he has the right to own a bigger table and desk than his subordinates, the individual who feels it's necessary to own a bigger car than someone else. It's all a form and display of masculinity and power, okay? It's all about the acquisition of resources and space, even at the detriment of others. Alright? Such as a cat will raise its hair to seem larger, a man will spread his legs to seem larger and more dominant. The manspread is a genital display. So the man is exposing his genitals to the world in a form of comfort and masculinity. He's doing this on an unconscious level where he himself doesn't necessarily know of the hassle he may be putting others through, for the most part. Okay? All he knows is he feels very comfortable, might be having a good day, and feels like no one is going to cause conflict with him at that moment in time, because otherwise he wouldn't be exposing his genitals. That's my explanation. If you like what you've heard, or if you want to inquire further or follow other means of reading someone's body language and what it really links to and what it really means and how it applies in the grand scheme of things in societies and so on and so forth, click the subscribe button. This has been Everyday Superpower. Peace.